Aloha, my name's Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is Unlocking Business Potential, How AI Solutions Are Driving Innovation. And my special guest is Tim Rodgers, Chairman and Founder of Rehab AI, a leading AI solutions provider in the UK and USA. Tim and his team have an impressive array of global brands that they've helped, including Nike, Disney, Lego, Spotify, and many others, and have been awarded numerous accolades, including an Emmy, Golden Lion, and no one knows how to make AI work for their brands like Tim does. In addition to his impressive resume, he's a sought-out speaker, advisor, as well as a beer lover and founder of Irish Gods, which is an Irish beer company. We're very lucky to have him here right off the tail of his recent trip to Scandinavia, where he was speaking at the AI Summit and unveiling his revolutionary new tool, the Stress Tester, which is helping creative testing at scale. Thanks so much for being here today, Tim.
Hey, thank you. It's so good to be here. Appreciate the invite.
So to get the party started, can you share a little bit more about the story of Rehab AI? What was your founding vision and how's it evolved since then?
Yeah, so Rehab is actually 19 years old. We're an innovation company. So our business is basically understanding new technology and how consumers will react to it and how it'll be used in marketing. And about 4 years ago, we got some early access to some early GPT models through one of our clients. And we were just kind of blown away by the potential of the tools. We started to build tools for ourselves to help us for pitching or ideation, things like that. And then we kind of realized that, other companies were not as experimental as us and that there was a real opportunity to help companies to increase their creative output, be more creative, be able to work under the resource strains that the industry's in the minute at the minute. And we created Rehab AI. So it's a specialized group within the company. And really our focus is about creating AI tools that support the start of the creative process. So, in advertising, marketing, creativity, all of the processes before you start to make something. So we're focused in that area. We are essentially building these custom tools for, like I said, a wide range of brands, media companies, and agencies.
I think it's really interesting, because I think being in advertising, one of the things people might immediately respond to is, oh, that AI is going to take away our ability to be creative, right? But in fact, you guys have the kind of reverse spin and it's helping foster creativity. Can you tell me more about your thoughts there?
Yeah, we did. We're essentially, we do a lot of research. So we did a lot of research on the technology, how it works. And from there, we kind of wanted to figure out how teams would work with the technology. The big thing that we've realized from the start was that it's never going to replace human creativity because it doesn't have passion and soul and emotion. And so we kind of had that as a grounding force. Our point was always about having the technology augmenting your team and supporting your team. And what we started to do is just experiment with it and just to try to understand, well, what are the tasks that in the creative process that humans don't like or are not going to be as good as the technology. So there's lots of different ways, but things like research, things like digesting large amounts of data, things like rewriting is something that copywriters never want to rewrite something for different social platforms or whatever. So there's all of these sort of use cases that we identified, and we started building these tools that would basically help teams, to assist them to get these different jobs done. From that, it sort of grew into kind of these like clusters of different tools that we're creating. But typically, whenever we're looking at, a team will come in to understand how they work, what's the job they're trying to do, and from there, figuring out what tools, either a SaaS tool or a custom tool, can be created in order to help them and improve their creative output.
Exciting. Do you have a specific? I know you're just in Scandinavia with your stress tester. Do you have any other? Is that a good example for our listeners on how you're really making the biggest impact and how your tools can be? Is there any specific industries where you're seeing a lot of benefit early on?
Yeah. Stress testers, a great example, and we can have a link to that so people can play with it. But there's just the underlying problem is that there's too much data, right? We're just generating too much data, especially in marketing. A consumer or a user on one platform is completely different to the same user on a different platform. They have different behaviors, and it's just like too complicated to figure out what to kind of like get a story from the data. And we've been trying to throw people at that problem for years. And essentially with the release of these large language models, now we can have the machine fight the machine as such. So basically every problem we look at is a data problem. What's most beneficial for a team really depends on their specific needs or their resources or what they're struggling with. But what we tend to see is there's sort of a few core buckets that we work inside. So the first is insights, consumer insights. So, in order to create great design or great piece of comms or communication or strategy, you really need to understand who you are targeting, who you're talking to. And again, it's very difficult. Consumers are changing a lot. They're changing their position, their point of view. And again, typically we can get research and strategists to sit down and create strategies based on what they could find. But that work quickly it becomes out of date.
Yeah.
With AI models and applications, we can actually do that work in real time. So we're not replacing the strategy team, but we're providing the teams with tools in order for them to find out like what's today's conversation on Reddit as it pertains to gaming, because that might be relevant to the brand that we're marketing. So it's just, if you've got the ability to find the patterns in the data in a way that's like easy and doesn't cost a lot, then that's going to make for better work.
I think that you're right, because what we struggle with always is in the past, and it's still even today. It's amazing how many business owners are still bamboozled by list acquisition. Oh, I bought a baby bottle on eBay, and now I'm in a list that says I'm the parent of a toddler, but I'm not the parent of a toddler. I bought one baby bottle in one instance. Or, I always hear from clients like how annoyed they are, right? When, I wanted a vacuum cleaner and I bought one, and now I'm getting vacuum cleaner ads for 30 days or longer. And I think it's like, I can be interested today in a vacuum and then just as easily tomorrow have no interest. And these are the types of tools that you're developing where we can really, be more efficient and learn in real time what those trends are.
Yeah. And a lot of brands are leveraging cultural marketing as a big part of their strategy. So in essence, something happens in the world and they react to it. And that's a big part of a lot of brands, like Liquid Death is a great example. Again, to find out what's happening in the world takes a lot of work. You have to identify a trend, figure out if it's real or it's hallucination or something else. And then from there, figure out, is it relevant for my brand? Is it relevant for my audience? Even before you've even created a brief to brief your team to leverage it. And so that process of like identification of the trend, validation to create a brief on average takes, it's like 312 hours of work to get there, which whenever you're trying to be reactive and, something pops on a Monday morning, it's Tuesday afternoon, like you want to be able to basically be beyond the brief and have the finished piece of work. You want to put it out there. So again, we can train the models to basically assist the teams to identify the trend, to validate that it's real using our creative testing personas, and then from there create a brief that's not only accurate and up to date, but also inspiring, right? Creative briefs, I don't know, like they're terrible. We have a real bugbear.
Yeah, I do have a question on that. Now where we know that every day it's said that 250,000 new websites come online, and about 40 to 50% of all traffic online is not human. Sorry, just my friend with terror. She agrees with me, of course. But
yeah, 100%.
How can, when you talk about this validation, how hard is it, when there's all these, and now AI is being used to emulate or replicate human behavior? Is it just becoming harder? How easy is it to separate the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Yeah. It's getting increasingly more difficult, but again, we can leverage the tools to prepare the citations. So there's a trend that we've identified. We want to figure out if it's real. We can very quickly have a report generated that goes like, basically the trend is this is why we think it's relevant, but here's the citations and here's where I'm understanding that trend is coming from. What that allows the strategists or researchers to do is to very, very quickly visit all of those online sites or comment notice boards, whatever it might be, and from there make their own opinion. So we're not actually like replacing the human in the process. We're just assisting with that research. From there, there's a lot of different methods that you can use to validate if something is real, but you're basically looking to understand the credibility of the source, if it's growing, if it's constant, if it's going to be a flash in the pan. All of that's like tried and tested. Where the technology that's been released over the past couple of years now just enables us to fast track that process, to reduce the amount of time it takes to basically validate and understand it. So, there's a lot of with the ability, the barrier to entry for anyone to go online and create fake content is so low. It's just, and so I think, there's a lot of conversation around, the creator economy and, the distrust in advertising. And there's lots of like signals that are really showing that we're moving to more of a kind of like, there's just so much noise on the internet. And now we're going to focus on small communities, micro influencers, nano influencers, to actually, be the source of trust, because you're having a conversation with that person. Of course, there's big profiles and everything else, but it feels like that's sort of what we're gravitating towards, and especially, with it being like an election year and everything else, I think there's like a big move from consumers just to try to understand what's real and what's not.
It's so interesting you say that, and it makes me think of two things. One is just the growth of virtual avatars and how they're becoming these influencers. And so there's kind of like, wow, like that's interesting that people would trust a virtual being, right? But then in addition to that, I'm reading this book. It's called Living in Bets, and it's from Annie Miller. She's a professional poker player. She's talking about the idea of, how we make a belief, right, humans, right? And it's like, first we have to hear something, and then we believe it, right? And very rarely do we ever fact check.
Yeah. Right.
It's like when you ask someone, oh, like how old is the dog in human years? And they immediately say, oh, it's 7. Well, that's really that's the thing we think we know. It's not really fact checked. And it's only really when someone says, well, how much do you want to bet? That people are like, oh, wait a minute. maybe where did I hear it? And how credible is it? And they might, try to change some of their belief. But it was really interesting that when they talk about fake news, and how even the smartest people, the people that you think would be, when they got real information, to be like, oh, wow, maybe my opinion isn't real. They were the most diehard of whatever that information was, trying to make it fit into their belief system. And the whole idea with fake news is that it doesn't matter how long it's out. It's just someone who wants to hear that hears it. And that's enough to make them believe that they've been right all along.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we see millions of messages every day, and it's just, we're all moving so quickly. And I think, I'm kind of impressed by some of the checks that the social platforms are putting in to kind of go like, this video, is 3 years old. It's not about what is happening today in this location, right? That type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have like mixed views on social media and everything else. I think that the barrier to entry to reshare something is just minuscule, and so that just becomes.
And then who's even seeing it, because that's with
right.
Our clients, and everyone is, they all think they have to have social. And something I wrote about in my book, it's, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean that you have to. And you have to realize that it's pay to play, just kind of think maybe your opinion is on where we are in the AI adoption curve. But just like social media, it was free or very low cost. But now that they have the eyeballs, you can't even post anything, expect it to be seen without, paying the piper. Yeah. Where do you think we are in the AI curve, or when it's going to become expensive?
Yeah. So where are we? I mean, I don't, every time I look at the hype cycle, everyone's saying we're at a different point. It's definitely not a fad. It's definitely real. Like,
yes,
if I took the tools away from the clients that I've created the tools for, they would not be happy. Right. So there's substance there. I think it's really difficult to kind of pinpoint it because everyone's at such a different part of the journey. Like, we speak to clients that have literally never used AI still in 2024. And a big part of my talk in Europe was about experimentation. Like, that's how we, and me personally, learn. I just build, I hack, I like take a piece of tech and I throw things together and I see what works, what doesn't. And a big part of like the issue with a lot of what we find in like C-suite VPs in companies is like they personally haven't used the technology. So what that means is they're relying on secondhand information from their agency or their team and everything else, and they don't really understand the fundamental transformation effect that it has. One of the like simplest thing we actually started discussing it on this call is the note takers. Like, we employ note takers on all of our calls, internal and external. And for the simple reason, one, we can have a conversation and we're not like writing notes or trying to figure out who said what, and we're engaged. So it makes for a better conversation. And then as soon as we hang up, 30 seconds later, we have a complete digest of what the conversation was, what the next actions are, maybe it drafts an email that you can check and validate and like pull stuff together. Like, I don't care who you are. Like, no one wants to write meeting notes, or no one wants to pay for, what would be like probably the lowest paid person in the company to spend 30 minutes writing up meeting notes and sending around. You just
conference reports. We need to call.
Yeah.
Whoever got stuck with the conference report, that was a bummer.
Yeah, 100%. But we take it a step further. So, because we've got that one transcript, obviously if we're working with a client, we've worked with Google for like 14 years. Like, we're like, well, if we have one transcript, then we can get all the transcripts, and we have all the transcripts for a particular client, person, or project. And this is all with permission, but like we have all those transcripts, then we can train models on those transcripts. So what that allows us to do is it creates a knowledge bank. So not only can we say what types, well, what color palette does Anna prefer, right? So you might have said that in a meeting, but it can also infer that from the conversation. So those tools then allow us to move quicker because we can leverage trained models on the conversations to give our teams more information about what the client likes, what the client doesn't like. One of the biggest thing we're working with a company at the moment is they have 14 people in every meeting. And the only reason they have 14 people in every meeting is because there's so many different departments and everybody has to be kept up to date. So there's just like every meeting is, thousands of dollars in wages and salary.
Right.
And we're like, let's have whoever needs to be there. Transcript can fill everybody else in, So these are like very, very simple things I'm talking about. And then I think that's also the beauty about the technology. It doesn't have to be, like Elon's robo taxis or whatever. Like it doesn't have to be this whole like big thing. It can be very, very simple, but highly effective ways to really improve the creativity of your team. That's what I love about it. Yeah.
I'm actually, as being a writer, I think I was maybe a little slow to the adoption, personally. But now, the team when my first entry was using Chat PGT for alt tags, like uploading an image, and I was blown away. I was like, oh my God. And then it made me know that we had to go redo all of our client websites, which is a lot, right? But it was worth it because it was for anyone who's disabled, and we practice accessibility, and it's a big deal. And, this is a better experience. Forget about the robot who's writing the site, for the human who needs that reader or whatever it might be. And it is incredible how much easier it can be if you train them and start to, use it. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And meta descriptions, like no writer wants to write a meta description of a page.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that's just another, it's another hack. But yeah, and again, meta descriptions is a great example because that's for computer. Like that's for Google's bots to help to contextualize the page. Why are we putting the human resources to feed the computer? Why not put the computer to feed the computer? Not to talk about Tesla and Elon, but that, which I think is one of the cool things that they built for the self-driving cars, was a simulator. So they have a simulator that outputs like the 6 camera views that the car would have. They feed that into the neural net. The neural net doesn't realize that it's looking at a computer simulation. They're able to simulate hundreds of thousands of like, super edge case events, like a
bird flying in the,
Yeah. There's like a rhino on the subway or on the freeway. Like, what do you do? Right. Obviously, you've got to stop, but you can't really, you can't get that data from the field. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot of, we're just getting people to work for computers.
Yeah. My only concern, being someone who's very involved in the renewable energy space, you can see my solar panels back here, is having the power. Once we all change our behavior and we all start to use it, how are we going to be able to power this AI machine learning? Because it does require so much.
100%. Yeah. And so, like I said, we have the group, innovation group. We actually have done a lot of work on digital sustainability. So done a ton of research just to show that actually the way that you program a website or web page can literally reduce the energy drain, not only on the server that's hosting and serving it, but the device, the desktop, cell phone, whatever. And there's just different ways that you can program websites which at the scale of, major retailers and major publications makes a significant reduction in the power consumption just to use the internet. That combined with like developers have been, as broadband and connectivity has risen, the optimization of websites has disappeared.
Yeah.
And so now you've got these like super fat websites that have no optimization just because the pipe can handle it. And I think to bring that back to AI, your viewers probably have seen mini models pop up in ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. And they're really interesting, and you might wonder what they're for, but they're essentially miniature models of large language models. Therefore, they're smaller. Therefore, we can train them in a more precise way, which allows us to get a faster response, but that also has a much lower energy consumption. So at the moment, you've got large language models, Gemini 1.5, ChatGPT-4, which are just huge, right? They're just so massive and they're super powerful and they're great. But if you are, doing your meta tags or your alt images, you don't need all of that data. So what we're moving towards is this sort of micro LLMs, very, very small LLMs that are very specifically trained to do one thing. And in that process, much more efficient from a time, money, and energy perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and that makes sense. We're also doing that kind of in the home, in terms of where a lot of utilities, they have time of use charges or demand response. And that's kind of the same thing. It's like, can we use less now because we know your need, right?
Yeah.
We know you're going to be doing, you're the homeowner, you're going to be, charging your car at night. So let's make adjustments in the rest of the day so that we can make sure not to pull from the grid. It's the same kind of thing, but it's just online.
Yeah, 100%. And no one is paying, like no user of AI is paying the true cost of it.
Right.
Like every company is in a growth acquisition mode because if they, if you're a major corporation and you start to use OpenAI, the thought is that you would always use OpenAI. So it becomes a very sticky relationship. And so, the prices that are being quoted, and there's also been a huge price reduction, a huge race to the bottom, but those prices are not in any way representative of true cost. So, I think we think a lot about that because I think like it's just this cost reduction is going to come. Or cost increase really to do that. But I mean, I think it's a great tool. I think if you think about really how to use it efficiently, I think the costs and the kind of the resources used and everything else can kind of make sense. But
and I think it's kind of like all software. We do a lot of technology audits, and if you don't use it, if you're using this part of it, then there's deficiencies of scale. That do you need 100 pieces of technology? No, you need 10, and you need to use all of the features and get everyone on board and trained. I think that's one of the easy things is always, even with the agency, we, got all these tools and people are really excited and hyped about them at the beginning. And then, we're not using that one anymore. Well, that's a cost savings opportunity, right? And more important as, we reach adoption and then all of a sudden, just like with social media, that price now is real. And then
100%.
Businesses that have thought that, by, using AI, they can scale back, employee resources or whatnot may not be in the same position to really. Yeah. So I got another question for you. So you're to switch gear a little bit to your beer. So are you using AI in any way with, to modify? I know that I heard some whispers, I can't remember the company, but of AI being used to make microbrewing or different flavors. Is that anything that you're using for Irish Gods?
Irish Gods, is with a couple of great producers in Belfast. They have a fantastic drinks business, and Irish Gods actually grew out of COVID, and it actually grew out of the Web3 space. So we had originally lent into Web3 to do things like tokenization, to be able to walk into your bar and get a free beer because that's your bar and we would know who you are and everything else. But we're not leveraging AI yet. We're currently looking at increasing the production facilities. But it's a beautiful, like, super crisp lager. We have a rattler, which is like a shandy. So it's the lager with lemon. And then we also have a cider as well. But no, it's fantastic. There's really the produce in Ireland's amazing. So it's all local ingredients. The lemon that we use for the lemonade is actually not from lemons. We're not flying lemons across the world. What do we have in Ireland? We've got lots of apples. So it's actually a citrus that's derived from apple.
Wow.
But it tastes like lemon. So everything is local. We're using seaweed to help to filter the beer and things like that. So super exciting.
Really cool. Really cool. So I guess to kind of end here, do you have any tips for business owners who want to start getting, reorganized or looking at their company in a unique way and how they could leverage AI?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it's about experimentation, right? If you don't understand how it works, I get it. It can be confusing, but there's tons of resources online to figure it out. Start by getting some subscriptions. You can get a ChatGPT, get a Gemini. You can get a Mid-Journey for images. You can get a audio creation. You can get a video. Like, there's tons of tools. Start to experiment and start to understand what the technology can actually do. Once you have like a sort of, I think, a good mental image of like the potential, then before you start to leverage any of your company data or any data that's private, then you really want to make sure that you're purchasing like a business account of those tools. Typically, a business account of those tools will essentially come with the ability either turned on by default, or you'll have the ability to not have your data be leveraged for training. So it's one of the biggest fears for a lot of companies, obviously, is like, my data being leaked. If you're using a free tool or a consumer level SaaS subscription, likely the data will be used for training. So before you start to use for your business, get a business account, go into the settings, make sure that the privacy is turned on. And then honestly, once you've done that and once you're set up, then it really is just about, like I said, like experimentation. I think if we look at like the entry level jobs to be done that AI is really good at, like we talked about note taking, like there's tons around that. Everyone has meetings, everyone has conversations, and making those more streamlined is a great place to start. Another place is, in terms of like writing, like I don't know if do you use any of the voice apps?
No, I can type so much faster. I actually do now. When I text, I speak to the phone.
Yeah.
That was just recent because I type so fast. Just being a writer and whatnot, that there's a different communication I have with my brain when I'm typing. I do for texting now. I speak to the phone.
Yeah. Which I love. I love that use case, and it's sort of that combination of voice and texting. But I think one of the really, for me, eye-opening things, and we do this a lot, is with the voice app, Voice GPT or in Gemini, whatever it is, you can set it up to have a conversation with the app. So great.
Yeah, I haven't had. It's so funny. So I just got Gemini I had another podcast with of my technology guys. He's the one who always helps us when the computer doesn't work. He wires in remotely and fixes things, you know. And he
Yeah.
was saying that he was having such a wonderful experience with Gemini, and I was like, wow, you know, I should try it. And so far, my experience has been not very impressive. Like I've been asking it to do things, and it hasn't been able to do hardly anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I do, which works really well, is if you're trying to write an article about something or you're trying to write a thing, what you can do is upload your thoughts. Like maybe you've got some notes, some sketches, whatever. You can upload those into a chat, and then you can then turn on the voice mode and then ask the app to interview you. So in the same way, it's not generating the text for you, right? It's not just AI writing for you, but it's questioning you, and then you're responding. It's transcribing your response to the questions to then make the article. So
Wow.
in that type of way, it's a flip on how to use it, but it's actually incredibly beneficial because writer's block just disappears whenever you're just being asked questions. So there's tons of stuff like that I think are just very low lifts and just really, really efficient.
That's really cool. I gotta try that out. I never even would have thought about asking it to interview me.
Yeah.
Wait to give
Yeah.
that a whirl.
Yeah. You just go, ask me relevant questions to write an article about this subject. That's all you have to say. So yeah, that type of thing. But yeah, I mean, the technology is moving so quickly that you do have to have a healthy appetite for exploration.
Yes.
And because it's kind of like, the old adage is like, AI is not going to take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI well. Like that's so true. And if you ignore it, like it's not going to go away. This is, we joke about this being as essential as Excel, right? Like there's no accountancy firm in the world that doesn't use Excel. Like AI is just going to be, it's already in most of the tools that you're using. It's been for years. It's more prominent now, but if you don't understand how to use it, I think you're just at a disadvantage,
I think you're right. I feel the same way about even, one of the reasons why I wrote my book was because, it's not acceptable anymore for people to say that, oh, it's too complicated for them to understand how to
No.
buy and sell advertising or how to read a report about their website traffic and, oh, it's above them. Well, you know what? It's not above you. And you must, if you want results and you want to not be taken advantage of by this insane growing fraud from every angle, you have to take the time to learn it, just like you learn to tie your shoes, right?
Right.
And that's the same thing with AI. It's here to stay, and it actually can make your life a lot easier if you let it.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is if you're faced with an empty prompt box where you have to type something, just ask a question like you would ask like a 3-year-old. Get started, and then you have a conversation with it. But yeah, no, it's fun.
It is fun. It's fun. Well, this has been fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us and for your stress test. I know we're going to post the link and people can go and use it. What is the long-term goal for that? Is it going to become an app that people can subscribe to? And just for our listeners, what it is basically it's different personas, and then you can give it content, and then they'll respond on how they would perceive it, from their environmental perspective or their, you can probably explain it better than I am, macho.
No, it's exactly right. It's, it can be used in many different ways, but yeah, it's essentially we're creating AI personas of different audience groups or different personas. So what that means is, you can give it an idea and you can get feedback. You can give it a pitch and get a response. Stress testers, again, we do a lot of work in advertising and marketing. So just through that lens, and, even just in the past couple of weeks, again, literally every week, there's an advert that gets canceled. There's a lot of controversy around Heinz last week.
Oh.
You'll find it online. But really, brands are scared because they're putting stuff out. They're not understanding how that piece of work will upset or not resonate with an audience. And audiences are so diverse that you can't get that type of information from traditional testing. So really what this does, it really sort of just like opens up, and that's why it's called stress test. It's about figuring out like this idea that you love, you've been working on for like months and months and months, and everyone's like high-fiving about how good this is. Well, a lot, especially in Silicon Valley, they don't look outside. And that's the bubble that they're in. What stress test does is go, well, actually, this is how, a single mom is going to respond to this in the suburbs versus,
A cowboy trucker or something like that.
Cowboy trucker, 100%.
Right. Yeah.
100%. And it's just eye-opening because we run the canceled ads as soon as we see them. We run it through the system, and it's just like it's verbatim the response, and it's scary how good it is.
Amazing.
So yeah, so it is going to be an app, or it is an app, should I say? We'll put the link. People can go on. They can run a bunch of tests for free. Check it out. And yeah, we're excited. It's been a big part of our summer getting that together. So
awesome. Well, super cool. And yeah, it's wonderful. So to learn more about Rehab AI, you can visit rehabai.com, or you can connect with Tim on LinkedIn. And please join me next week on the Covert Code as we talk to another industry expert with a solution to help you succeed on and offline. Aloha.